Robert.
And this week we thought we would talk about cases, different shapes, different materials, different finishes, a little bit of everything. So
I feel like for a long time, we were in this realm where everything felt the same.
Yeah.
You had a couple, like you had Cartier, you had Reversos that were a little bit different, but you had so much of just, it looks like a watch.
yes.
And now, and you know, obviously it's a very big generalization. There was a lot of interesting stuff that's been throughout the whole era of horology, but I feel like we're moving into kind of a golden age of case design
Absolutely.
now. And we're seeing cool cases. We're seeing cool materials.
Yep.
We're seeing interesting shapes. We're seeing people reach for new kind of stuff, especially with some of the independents that we have here on the table. So
Yeah, I mean, when we started talking about, you know, thinking of watches that we wanted to pull out, and we started pulling things out of the safes, and we literally had to go put stuff back because we had so much out here.
Let's hit the table cam.
So
and,
yeah, show the people what we got.
Yeah, we grabbed half the inventory here for you guys this afternoon. We've got Pateks.
Yep.
We've got Longa. We've got IWC.
You
Jaeger,
name it, Robert.
Cartier.
We've got it. Rolex, Cartier, AP, Ferrier, Journe,
Indies.
IWC, Indies, Classics, Grand Comps. Like we got literally everything. So we're gonna try and get through as many as possible. And we, you guys actually had a lot of good suggestions too. Thank you very much for letting us know what you guys want to see. We tried to grab everything that we had. And if there are other things that you guys want to see or want to talk about specifically, definitely let us know because we're happy to chat. What's up, David? Slide the whole thing a little bit to Robert. Okay, we will do that. Okay, good, good. All right, we're making things happy. We're Rob. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Maybe switch. That's all right. Whatever.
Works,
we
you
caught
got
it
it.
there too. So, I don't know. Where should we start? Actually, you know what? I think I know exactly where we should start.
Okay.
I think we got to go with the classic Oyster case.
I was going to hit that and the Calatrava
Perfect.
as our two beginnings.
Let's-
Because I think
let's
you're
start
absolutely
there.
right. So you can't talk about case design without Rolex. And you look at Rolex and you're like, but they're all the same case.
Right.
But there's a really good reason for that. And just about every Rolex that's made, I think now says Oyster Perpetual on the dial, right?
Yeah, that's actually that'd be a good trivia question.
I'm pretty sure every single Rolex that gets produced these days says.
I want to look at the only one I was thinking was maybe the new Cellini.
Oh wait, well that doesn't, because that is not an Oyster case.
Exactly.
And the Oyster Perpetual that's on every single kind of Rolex as we usually think of it, the Cellini is obviously a special case.
Right.
The reason you have those two words on there is the Perpetual refers to the automatic movement, which was one of Rolex's initial innovations into the world of horology, and then the Oyster refers to the case. And I believe the first Oyster case was the bubble back, which was an awfully long time ago.
Hold on.
And the bubble back was the first really high quality, like water resistant case. You had a three-piece case there where you had a mid case and you had a bezel and a case back that were screwed into that mid case, and you had a screw down crown on those watches. And that was the beginning of the Oyster case. So when we think of Oyster Perpetual, we think of a line of watches because they now make a line called the Oyster Perpetual, which I think kind of came out of the, you had like those 34 mil Air Kings and things like that. Am I the right way? That's the right way. Sorry, folks. I got it now. So we have here one of the newer 41 mil OPs, and we picked this as our example of the Oyster case because it really represents kind of the purest form of that case. You have the standard stainless steel case, you have a smooth bezel. Again, we have that screw down case back, which at the time was a really big deal. Now we think of that on, you know, pretty much every sport watch, but that was a big deal. And we have the screw down crown, which now, you know, has more gaskets in it than you can shake a stick at. And that's part of why these watches have such good water resistance. So you've got, you know, there are gaskets in the stem and inside the crown and inside the case. And all of that is what makes Rolex the bomb-proof watches that they are. It was a really big deal. And that's why pretty much every Rolex now is put in that Oyster case. And it is, in my opinion, it's like the pinnacle of what this like a sport watch should be.
Totally.
It's completely classic. It's completely perfect.
The design is basically 100 years old now as well. I mean, it was the early 20s when
it was. I was going to say the 30s, so I wasn't
the early
that far
20s.
off.
Yeah, when Rolex introduced the Oyster case, and it's like you said, it's come to really dominate the market, and it's really the kind of the definitive case when like we said, when we think of cases and case design, we kind of immediately went to the Oyster case. So I think it is kind of it's incredibly important, and it obviously a lot of these pieces don't look anything like that, but they're it has influenced so many other case designs that have come after it.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Again, that I feel like if you go to the person on the street and you're like, think of a watch, that like a Rolex is probably half of the people, that's what pops in their head.
Yeah.
Right? Is like a sub or a Datejust or something like that. And again, subs, Datejusts, Daytonas. There are some pre-Oyster Daytonas like the 6239s and things like that where they didn't have the screw down crowns.
Yeah, right.
Right, and the pre-Daytona 6234, 6238. But now every sport model Rolex has that OP element because it's automatic and it's in an Oyster case.
I mean, what other chrono? What other brand makes a chrono with that kind of a water resistance? And
screw down pushers.
You have no concerns about. I mean, I would never because I'm too nervous with my stuff. But you easily could take it in the water, a Daytona, and not even think twice about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. If it's new and under Rolex warranty, I'd do it.
Yeah.
But once you see what water does to watches,
don't do
that. It gets a little scarier.
All right, where did you say you wanted to go next?
So I think the next place to go when we're talking about the history of case design is the Patek Calatrava case.
Yeah.
Before I do that, folks on Instagram, we are live on YouTube and we have the full frame. So instead of holding your phone like this, you can hold your phone like that, and you can see a little bit more. We are monitoring comments there as well, so feel free to join us on YouTube if you want to check out that experience. So the Calatrava case, people are very familiar with the name Calatrava as like the classic dress watch line from Patek Philippe. And where it actually came from was Patek was the first company to make the mid case out of a solid piece of metal. So we'll go to the close-up here and we'll get real nerdy. So the mid case is all of this. So everything that's not the bezel in the case back. So this is the mid case. And previous to this, did we pull
What's that?
Like a Longa or a Breguet or something like that?
We actually did not.
We didn't.
I know, we should.
Can somebody pull, like a Breguet would be perfect. Any Breguet, simple,
Craig,
classic.
You want to turn that heat down, Craig, too? I'm like already starting to sweat.
Are you schwitzing?
It's hot back here, man.
So previous to this, you had cases like Breguet, where you had a round case and you had lugs that were then soldered on, straight lugs that came out. You see this in the Breguet cases, you see this in Longa cases, and there are Patek cases that have this, like the Patek Officer's case have that. But previous to this case style, that was almost every single wristwatch that was created.
Grab the Corne de Vache, and you can use that as an example. That's
right?
kind of an example right there.
That is like an applied lug after the fact. You can see that case is like perfectly round, and then the lugs were put on after the fact. This may, in fact, be a monoblock case since it's modern.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, but it gives you an idea.
But it gives you the idea.
If you look at the Corne de Vaches from the 50s, 40s, 50s, you know, it's very clear that those cowhorn lugs were soldered onto the case after the case had already been manufactured. Essentially,
this works well. So here's a very classic Breguet, which actually is kind of funny we didn't put one of these on here.
Plastic.
Oh, thank you, producer Craig. All right, so this is the Breguet Classique, and you have a great example of it here because you have this perfectly round case and you have lugs that clearly are not a solid part of that mid case. Again, in today's modern manufacturing, they might do it that way, but traditionally these were soldered on. And there are still watches today where the lugs are attached to the case afterwards, whether it's like some kind of solder or laser welding or something, but that's what they do. So Patek came out and said, let's make the mid case out of a single piece of metal. And you got this sculpted, lovely profile here. And that is the Calatrava case. And that's why you sometimes see vintage IWC and vintage Longines that are marked as Calatravas. And it wasn't because it was it signified a dress watch per se, but it signified this style of case. The one we picked here is the modern 6119. This is kind of the standard bearer for the manually wound Calatrava in Patek's arsenal at the moment. We have a return of the hobnail,
Right.
which is wonderful. I'm going to try and get that in focus. If I put my hand behind it, does it help?
That's
a little
all
bit. David, can you help?
Don't worry about it. It's okay.
So the hobnail are these little pyramids. There we go. That's
nice.
Perfect. Beautiful. These little pyramids that go all the way around the bezel. And you found this on a lot of older Calatravas and even some Perpetuals and dual times and stuff, but it had kind of gone away for a while. And now Patek has brought it back. They've also brought it back on the mid-case band on the 5226 and the 5326, 5236, one of those.
5236, I believe.
And so really cool, really nice new movement in this, though we're not talking about movements today. But this, again, I think next to the Oyster, this would be the next thing where if you say, like, think of a watch, people think of this case automatically.
Right. Well, I mean,
and it's really amazing.
And just Calatrava, the name Calatrava is such an iconic, it conjures up such an iconic design, you know, it's instantly recognizable.
Yeah.
And it's another one, the design, you know, it's almost 100 years old now. This was, you know, the early 30s, I believe, when the Stern family actually bought Patek. This was one of their first designs, the Calatrava, what was it, the 96, I believe, right?
The reference 96,
yeah.
the first Calatrava. Tiny by today's standards.
Oh, yeah. 33, right?
30.5.
30.5?
Not even 33.
Oh, my God. That's even small for me.
It was, and that's why if you're in the market for a vintage Patek and you can tolerate what I consider to be an extreme small size at that point, they're an amazing value. I mean, you can get a nice yellow gold one for well under 10K.
Yeah.
No problem.
I mean, we've seen some absolutely stunning ones, just incredible condition and everything.
And if you have a little bit more, you could get like steel, or you can get there's a couple that have like radium hands or markers or things. Yeah, there's a couple with luminous, but then I remember Philips maybe had a steel one that had Breguets and then radium-filled syringe hands.
Damn,
that was like,
that's amazing.
But it's 30 millimeters.
Right, I know. I mean, that would even be small for me, so that'd be dainty.
It feels too
cool,
small
though.
for
I mean, it'd be fun to have if I had everything else. I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Exactly. Yeah. So those, to me, are the two most historically important cases, in my opinion.
Yep.
Because it's kind of like, you know, when Breguet invented the overcoil or something like that.
Sure.
Like, everything else that was there is
Up to
now
that point.
possible.
Right.
So, like, Rolex comes out with the Oyster case, and you have a whole new, era of watches.
Yeah, it was a paradigm shift in watchmaking history. You know what I mean? Like, that's totally changed the game, and was an important milestone for sure in the history.
What do we got in the chat? Anything? And while he's looking at that,
go ahead.
If you guys are in the chat, what do you consider to be a historically important case? I'm sure some of them will be here on the table, but what do you think of when you think of, like, oh, that's a cool case for a watch? What comes to your mind?
So one question I saw, asking between the Calatrava, VC Traditionnel, or a Longomatic, if you had to have one, which direction would you go?
It's interesting throwing the Longomatic in there and not like a Saxonia or an 1815, because that would be the fairer fight if you're looking at manuals.
I think I'm going Calatrava. I don't think there's any Vacheron Traditionnel that I would choose over any Calatrava.
That boutique one with the Guilloche.
I know, that one's pretty nice. That one is very nice, actually.
I owned that one, not that specific serial, but I owned that Guilloche Vacheron for a year or two, something like that,
you wore it
before
all the
I
time,
traded it for a Patek. Yeah, well, it was my daily.
I know.
And I enjoyed every minute with that watch, but then the trapeze came along and
which you didn't wear today, like an idiot.
I didn't wear the trapeze today.
We're talking about cases and case shapes and interesting designs, and you're like, I'm gonna wear a Panerai.
As we're setting up, and you said that to me, I was like, that is really bad. I wore the Panerai because water falls from the sky right now in Boston.
Yeah,
it was pouring buckets when I left my house today.
All right, so we got some responses to your question then. So Overseas 222 says, also interesting name, Overseas 222, and then to choose the Nautilus. What the heck you doing, man?
I'm guessing you have a type, sir.
We do have.
But then to say the Nautilus,
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
he's
That's
got
what
the
I'm saying.
trifecta,
Come
He's
on.
got all three.
All right, so that obviously makes sense. So
Yep.
my buddy Andre said the Cellini Prince is such a non-Rolex shape,
Ooh.
and you're right. I mean, it's definitely like a it's an acquired taste, and if you're looking for some funk, that's a great direction to go.
Yeah.
And they're super affordable because it is not what Rolex does. People aren't looking for it. People aren't expecting it. So
But it's comfortable on the wrist. It's a good size. That's
It
a good
is.
shout. I appreciate that. On YouTube, we have Patek Philippe Golden Ellipse. I didn't even think
So
about
producer
the
Craig
ellipse.
actually mentioned that. He was like, "Do you guys have an ellipse?" And I said, "Damn, that we don't."
The golden ratio.
The
and
golden
all that.
ratio, exactly. That would have been a good one to have.
I would love to get an ellipse.
They don't make it anymore.
The King Minus is insane. That is such
That's
a
cool.
wild piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be peak on Rolex, you know?
We've only seen a handful of those, but super cool. I'd love to get a nice ellipse.
Valley Wolf, I would love. So we've had the Rose, the newer
30, I can't remember the
30
5173 or something.
I
I can't remember.
No,
the
it's
rose with the
definitely not.
brown.
Rose brown.
The
It's
smaller
insane.
one.
So
yeah.
good. Valley Wolf saying some vintage Art Deco styles that are really, really impressive. We actually have some like the modern interpretation of some Art Deco designs that we will talk about. Let's see.
I want to find that
Blancpain
reference.
50 Fathoms with a sapphire bezel, cool. Moser Streamliner, we have one on the table. We have the Perpetual on the table, actually, and I agree. Like, that is an interesting. I don't know. I'm not totally sold on Moser as a brand, and their staying power and kind of the overall. I don't know. It just doesn't necessarily do it for me yet. I'm getting there. I think they're doing
Moser-
interesting things.
Moser's interesting because which one did he say?
So he said the Streamliner,
The
and I think,
Streamliner?
and I agree. You know, it's rare for a brand, you know, for a new design to come along, and for a brand to do something that is truly different.
It's funny though because when we get to that, I'll talk about where I think that came from.
We'll talk about it
in
right
terms
now.
of-
Let's go.
Okay,
We're
all
here.
right, we're here. We're doing it. Who pushed us in this direction? I was looking for an ellipse. Sorry, folks.
Overseas 222.
Ah, okay. So the whoops, that's the date. The Moser, I've like gone back and forth on some of them. The Pioneer cases are a hair too big for
Yeah,
me,
they
but
don't
I
do it for me
like
either.
the style and the design.
Mhm.
I sold a one of the coated ones with the blue
DLC.
fume.
Yep.
It's a nice watch.
They
it's
are.
killer. But they wear a little too big for me. The Venturer case wears really well. I like that one kind of the best.
Well, you're bearing the lead there. Here, what do you think about the
but
Streamliner?
We've got a Streamliner. And if you were like, where does this watch come from? This reminds me so much, and this would be another good one that we didn't have, of the IWC Ocean 2000, which was like the
Really?
very early Porsche design watches that they made.
So the bracelet definitely reminds me
right?
of that.
I mean, look at that.
It's very similar to that. Yes, the bracelet design, I agree, definitely gives me those vibes. The rest of the watch, no. But
Well, it doesn't have the IWC didn't necessarily have the cushion shape, but I don't know, just the contours and the flow of it and all of that really makes me think of that.
the bracelet is incredibly incredibly comfortable. It wears so nicely.
It's got a lot of flex
Yeah.
to it, which is cool. I really appreciate that. It's a real interesting watch on the wrist, and I think all of these watches that don't have lugs have kind of a different thing going on compared to, you know, anything where it's got like a more traditional kind of lug style. This sits really well, though. It sits really well. It's not too tall. It's super slick for a Perpetual, but yeah.
Every time we have just the plain Streamliner with the green dial, I kind of lust over it, and then I wear it for a little while, and I really do like it. I just don't think there's anything in my collection right now that I would move into one.
I like the crown here
yeah,
and mostly recessed
Yep.
because it preserves the integrity of like that cushion shape.
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking about complications this week either, but like this is bananas that looking at this, well, that's a Perpetual calendar.
Yeah.
It makes zero sense, and I really do. I love
super slick movement.
I
on
love the attitude and
Nice
kind of
finishing.
the overall feel that Moser has in their approach to how they design things, because you know most brands, most manufacturers want people to know that the piece is a Perpetual. Moser could care less. You know, they literally could care less whether anybody knows this is a Perpetual or not. Like, this is for the guy who wants the functionality but wants like
Yeah.
doesn't want anybody to know, wants it to be super under the radar. It's a really interesting piece.
Ooh, on YouTube, Vianney Halter Antiqua.
Yes. That's one of my favorite pieces of all time. I love the Antiqua.
I like the
You
trio.
like the trio grand.
I love that trio.
Yeah.
Sticks in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Like seriously sticks.
I
in
wish
my
we had
mind.
that too, because that's another. I mean, all
Both of
all
those.
Vianney's, but both.
Right.
Yeah, both of those specifically are incredible case
Right.
designs.
Well,
if
that
you're not
whole-
familiar, the Antiqua looks literally like something from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Like it's Captain Nemo's watch, and then the Trio Grand was literally designed to look like a gold ingot, like
It's a wearable ingot.
It's a
It's-
wearable
and
ingot, and
so
it's
sick.
so cool.
But with the steampunk, like the rivets and
Yeah, yeah,
stuff, it's
yeah.
so good.
it looks
Ah.
super super cool.
But it was like when we had it, it was what, 200 grand
yeah,
or
it was
something
insane.
like
I mean,
that.
they made like I think like 3.5 of them or something. Like it was
it's
crazy.
super small production. We have Royal Oak in YouTube as well, which I agree.
Why don't we
and we're gonna get
move
there.
into Genta designs now then? Because that
The Genta.
this will be the Genta section of the discussion.
So it's funny actually. So everybody thinks, give us the table cam for this real quick. Everybody, like you say the Genta designs,
Yeah.
and the things that come to mind are Royal Oak. Can we get closer?
You could also just go to your side camera.
Hold
but
on.
That's okay.
No, I want this because I'm going to do a couple. Yes.
Okay,
Lovely. Thank
there
you, David.
Go. Grab that.
They think of that. They think of that. And a lot of people think of this, the
Well,
222.
Incorrectly, but that's okay.
Incorrectly. That's where I'm going. Genta did not design this watch. As lovely as it is, this is not Genta. The third watch that Genta designed, who knows what it is? Put it in the chat, and then we'll
Oh,
reveal.
actually, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, if you
Right?
know, if you know.
Do
let
you
us
know what's the trio here? Because there is a third one, and it ain't this.
Like the third
No.
one that goes along with those two, or
Yes.
Well, yes,
Yeah,
he's obviously- he obviously
designed a
designed-
lot,
he
right?
designed
He's
many
designed a
others.
lot, and he's designed everything from sunglasses to everything else. But there's a third one that was in the same era as these that should be on my hand. So let's see who gets it in the chat, and then we'll reveal the answer. All right, now we'll go to the close-up, and we'll talk about these cases. So we are in the 1970s, and the quartz crisis is rocking the watch world. These extremely accurate.
You didn't trick anybody, by the way. People are all over this in the chat.
Yeah, of course they are, because they're on the same level as us,
I know,
right?
I know.
Everybody knows.
All right.
So
We
have
have
one of the new
we have one of the
ones.
new ones.
We
Yeah,
have
if you
one
want
of
to
the new
grab it.
ones.
Yeah.
yeah, so
It's by the way, it's an Ingenieur. It's an Ingenieur. You got it. Everybody got it.
It is an Ingenieur. The IWC Ingenieur was actually the one that he designed, and those original ones are very cool.
They are very interesting.
And it's funny because there was an Ingenieur before that was a dress watch.
Yeah, it had
Um,
almost no connection to
Yeah.
the design that Genta came out.
So anyway, it's 1972,
71.
71.
The 5402 came out and it debuted in 71, but it was made
Right, they
available
didn't
to the public
produce
until
it till
72.
72.
Correct. Yeah.
So 1971, the Swiss watch industry is struggling and is running scared, and they're like, we need relevance, and they approached the famous designer. Thank you, producer Craig. Lovely. We'll get to that in a sec. And they said, please make us something that feels really modern and will save the Swiss watch industry. And apparently he like drew this on a cocktail napkin or something, and
Yeah,
we
the,
now
the legend
have-
surrounding the Royal Oak is like
it's
the
a wonderful
best.
story.
over one
So
night, right?
we now have
What's that?
Over one night.
Exactly. Yeah.
this
yeah.
watch, and it was inspired by the porthole on a battleship. So you get this octagonal bezel with screws securing it in place, and you get this industrial kind of like, you can see the gasket. This black strip here is actually the gasket in between the case and the bezel that keeps the watch water resistant. It was designed with a JLC AP Patek collaborative movement that the lion's share of the work was really done by JLC.
Yep.
That made the watch ultra thin, and it came out, and it was like the most expensive watch in steel
It was. I was
ever,
gonna say it was the most expensive stainless steel wristwatch ever produced.
and people lost their minds.
Yep.
Did you know that they had to make the prototype in white gold because they did not know how to work with steel?
That's maybe you just told me that recently, and that kind of blew my mind. I didn't realize that the first one was white gold, which is really kind of funny. But I totally get that, because steel is a pain in the neck to work with. And everything about this watch became so iconic. It took a while, but it became so iconic. Like the bezel, the waffle dial, the bracelet with those 2 center links like that, which it's really hard because 9 times out of 10, you say watch bracelet, you get this. You get the Oyster bracelet, which goes with the Oyster case. And it's great. It's perfect. It's functional. There's nothing wrong with it. But most stuff thereafter felt derivative, and this does not.
No,
this is its
not.
own thing,
It's
and
amazing.
it's super duper cool. So AP does this. People lose their minds, and Patek says, wait a tick. We can play too. They also enlist the help of Mr. Genta, and we end up with the then referenced 3700, which we actually could have got.
We could have. We have one right now. I know. We weren't thinking.
Ooh,
I mean,
hold on.
I mean, so we got a, what?
Interesting. The Louis Cartier. That was like the world time, right?
Yes,
that's
that
cool.
was the world time.
I dig that.
That
And
actually is
then
cool.
the
And
Piaget Altiplano.
Hell yeah, that's amazing.
I don't think of that as a case, though. I think of that as about the movement.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because it's wafer thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So this obviously is a modern 5711, but the experience on the wrist is kind of the same. You get a second hand.
It's totally the same, dude, as the 3700.
No, it is not.
Yes,
I will
is.
fight you
Oh
on
my
that one.
God.
You're very wrong, as usual. The 3700 is so much more vibey, and the bracelet feels different, the case feels different. You don't have a seconds hand, which is better because nobody cares about the seconds. So 57, the 3700 came out, and it's the same kind of thing. We get this porthole business again with the hinge on the side where you would have opened the porthole, but obviously a very different shape and a different bracelet. Again, a great way of making kind of this almost 3-linky bracelet kind of thing, but not really, with these polished center links like that.
I believe that is a 2-piece link, Robert.
It is, but
if,
I mean,
if you count it.
technically, this is...
That's a
not
1-piece
really,
link, my friend.
Yeah, it's 1 piece, so it's not a 3-piece either, but people think of this as a 3-piece link.
Right. Back in the day.
We can argue
Actually, yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to know, because I feel like we're not talking about bracelets today, but like, what do people prefer? Do you prefer the Royal Oak bracelet, or do you prefer the Nautilus bracelet? I personally prefer the Royal Oak bracelet. I think it's actually more comfortable. It has more articulation than the Nautilus bracelet. And I appreciate that it's all brushed too. And there's
so thin.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's so comfortable.
So thin. The polished center links on these do like to get scratchy, but
yeah, they do.
But it's not bad. This is also quite thin.
It is.
It's a little bit thicker if we're gonna split hairs, which we do in the show and in this store. But what a design, man! What a design! Both of these are just absolutely killer. They had the same caliber originally. Obviously, they don't anymore. This retains a version of the original caliber that's now made by AP,
which finally has a quick set date. Finally,
on the 16202.
I know,
This is an older 15220.
not on the 15220.
Which you guys should buy this watch because the condition of this thing is insane.
Yeah.
This is so beautiful.
We never see this in yellow gold either. This one's so cool.
But yeah, so you still get a nice kind of thin thing. And a lot of people actually are surprised when they first try this watch on how kind of thin, and I don't want to say it feels delicate, but it definitely isn't like a chunky watch. It's not like a sub. It's a really different feel in the hand.
Neither are, but I would say that the AP feels more delicate than the Nautilus does.
I feel like, actually, I don't know which way to go. So everybody thinks that the Genta designed this watch, but he didn't. He actually designed this watch.
Well,
and this is the modern recreation of the Ingenieur, and I think they knocked it out of the park.
Finally.
Ooh, definitely Royal Oak. Way better made.
Yes.
Oh, them's fighting words right there.
No, you're right, dude. Totally.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Really?
Really? I mean, I'm biased, obviously. I love my Royal Oak, but still, like, I would choose the Royal Oak bracelet every single day over a naughty bracelet.
Funny. That's so funny.
I mean, I appreciate it.
I would choose the Royal Oak to wear just because I kind of like the bezel and the whole thing there. I like that it doesn't have a seconds hand. But if we're talking about the manufacturer of the watch, I'm going with the Patek. So this is the new Ingenieur. This is the turquoise dial model, and these are killer. The bracelet looks kind of familiar to something we just saw. Sorry, I'm out of the frame. What?
He just beat that whole design language to death.
Genta? I mean, we've talked about this though, in terms of the Royal Oak. Like, if you're the Rolling Stones, you're going to go on stage and you're going to play the hits, man. Like, give the people what they want, right? Like, don't. I don't know. Don't get out there and do like Doobie Brothers covers or something. Like play your Stones music.
That'd be amazing. Are you kidding me? I would totally go to that concert. The Stones play the Doobie Brothers?
The Doobie Brothers?
Hell yeah, let's do it.
I don't know where that came from, by the way.
I love it.
But this is so good. And these are like 10 grand retail.
Yeah, right around there,
which is a little high, but at the same time, I think you're getting a really good product.
This
now.
one's amazing too with that aqua dial. So we've seen.
I like all three.
Yeah, I mean, you would like the black or the white because it's boring, but that aqua dial is just like gorgeous, and it's tough. It's tough to really get it in the camera, but the texture on that dial is
there we go.
Yeah,
the checkerboard.
It's
is
like a really
slick.
cool checkerboard guilloche. Rob, you are the wrong. Yeah, there we go. There we go.
I'm upside down and backwards right now. Not in my chair, but on the monitor.
You're
so.
the only one with the polished center links. All the
You're
others
right.
are
They're all brushed.
That is true, actually. That is true because we had two of them at the same time, and the links got put in the wrong boxes, and people were like, "What's going on?" And then
Costa Valdez asking if that
figured that
Ingenieur
out.
has a screw-down crown, and yes, it does. Let me check the water resistance
Screw
on this
down,
guy.
lock it down. Good watch, good save by IWC because the Ingenieur line
Yeah, it was getting
kind of
real,
lost its
real
way
sad
for a little bit,
while
and
there.
this is cool. Cooler though is
120
this.
meter water resistance on that bad boy.
I have discussed this watch a few times in terms of how much I like it. This is the 222 from Vacheron. This is not a screw down crown. Interesting.
No, that is not a screw-down crown.
It does not.
No.
I can wind away right there.
Yep.
This is so cool. The 222 had been out of production for many moons, and then they just
40+
brought this
years.
back. Yeah, they brought back the postage stamp bezel, which I think is so killer.
What are you talking about? The
On the 222 because
Oh,
the
yeah.
overseas, which is what this morphed into, right? Vacheron obviously wanted to compete with its fellow Trinity members and came out with the 222. It was and it's called that because of like the 222nd anniversary or something.
It was
like
what,
that, right?
1977,
Yeah.
I want to say?
And so they came out with this, and then this evolved into the overseas, where instead of this kind of postage stamp motif, you got the Maltese cross, which works really well. It's very cool, but I really like that they brought this back. I think it was really bold bringing it back in gold like this.
Well, I mean, originally it was they did it gold, they did it steel, and they did the two-tone, and I am like anxiously awaiting Vacheron releasing this in more variants of this. I love that they did yellow with that champagne dial to start. Like it's so.
This is like I see your Rolex president and I raise you.
This is like the thinking man's choice to a luxury sporting watch.
Super
like
cool.
I have the utmost
hidden
respect for
class.
anybody that chooses to buy this over
So
a
that
Nautilus
everything
or a Royal Oak or whatever it may
tags
be.
in
I
the way.
love the bracelet. It's again like we're splitting hairs. You know, it's like the same or a different side of the same coin. You know, from the naughty bracelet or you know, even the Streamliner kind of. You know, it's like that funky armadillo style articulating bracelet.
Didn't the old quartz Rolexes have that same like case?
They
The
did have
Oyster
a thing.
Quartz
The
has had
Oyster
something
Quartz did
similar.
have a thing
Yeah.
like this where you have that hard edge there, which you kind of get with all of these. You get that hard edge as it transitions
shoulder,
over
yeah.
top. It's very 70s. I love it.
I would love for
I'm very much
Vacheron
all
to release
70s.
a two-tone version of the 222, or like do it in platinum or something just totally
oh,
crazy.
platinum would be beastly.
right? It'd be
But
sick.
they got to do steel. They're going to do steel. They're probably going to make like 4 of them, which sucks. And you're not going to be able to get one. But if they did this, and actually, wasn't it gray? It was a gray dial back
It was,
then,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like if they did that
the
with
steel
old
and the
school
two-tone one,
steel,
yeah.
I'd love a two-tone one. I don't know why.
We've had a few that were actually full set. Remember?
I messaged Justin today because our photographer David's wearing a two-tone Sky Dweller, and I was looking at it on his wrist, and I was like, man, seeing that, like, I don't know why. Sometimes you see a watch on somebody's wrist, and you're like, man, it's making me love two-tone all over
And
again.
My response was, so yesterday in the office, I was wearing, you know, we have an all yellow gold Rolex GMT with the brown bezel. Gorgeous watch, brown dial, brown
like
bezel.
an old school 1675.
Thank you. 16...
758?
758, thank you.
Okay, so one generation
anyways,
later.
all yellow gold. And then we also have a two-tone one, and I think I prefer the two-tone one.
The Clint Eastwood,
It's
as they
just
call
so
it.
great. It's
Yeah.
such a good watch.
So we've sucked up half our time, and we've talked about like 4 watches.
Yeah, we got to keep moving.
We might need to speed things up a touch.
That's all right. Maybe.
Oh, do we have questions?
I'm looking. I'm keeping an eye out. Oh, somebody asked about the Chopard Alpine Eagle. I mean, that's a great recent design that I think is, again, like, so you know, I mentioned that it's kind of hard to do anything new at this point for watch for.
The St. Moritz.
It's the St. Moritz,
but not. Yes,
Yeah.
but better, much better. The St. Moritz, Jesus, they would be mad, Craig, if no. But anyways, it's kind of hard for watch brands to do something truly new. And again, yes, it's not totally new. It's an iteration of an older design, but yeah, the Alpine Eagle is a great piece. Those dials are beautiful, and you know, again, it's another take on an integrated bracelet sport watch, which is cool. Yes, we're gonna talk about the Bulgari. Yes, that one. Yes, exactly.
That's actually Genta-ish.
We have talked about this many times actually now, and you know, if somebody asks me what is a truly new design in the watch world or in the past 20 years, I'm gonna say the Bulgari Octo, you know, Octo Finissimo every single time, because it is actually a totally new, a totally fresh design. They nailed it, and they continue to build out this model line with really interesting complications and different tweaks. This is the
some
Tadao
of these
Andao.
LEs, like this Ando LE
Yeah.
is really cool. Those tattoo ones, we haven't seen one here in the store
Yeah.
yet, but I think those are super cool.
Yep.
Let's go for the close-up so that you guys can get the details on
I mean,
this
you have
one.
chronos now, world times. You know, they did the perpetual. Like,
That is thin.
it's crazy.
Oh my.
It's totally crazy.
Oh my, that's thin.
7 millimeters.
It's
7
so
mil?
cool.
Yeah.
And they do
Ridiculous.
that by like making the movement basically a wafer. Like it's so thin, it's insane.
And it's
7 mil case.
And it's incredibly affordable as well. It's just
It's very fair. And even this, like I remember when these were like 20 or something like that. They were
The
quite
Andaus, yeah.
expensive, and they've come down, or actually they might have even been 30, but they've come down a lot. And it's super cool. This whole concentric circle thing emanating from the small seconds there, I think is killer. I love the sparseness of it.
Yeah.
It's killer, and
Yeah,
it totally
super clean.
suits a Japanese architect.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean that, and again, you know, that matte gray finish and everything. Like it's got such a unique, distinctive look to it.
This makes me think of like Blade Runner or something
I was
like that.
just gonna
Like,
say Blade Runner. Exactly. Exactly.
This is what in the 80s they thought this is what the future
Right,
looked like. Like
right.
you'd wear this in your flying car
Ex-
and you'd have your hoverboard in the trunk and that'd be
Right.
that.
Right.
This is Genta inspired. This came from the, what was it, like the Octoroma or something
Octoroma,
that
yeah.
he was doing.
Yep.
Well, he did it first himself under his name, and then Bulgari bought it and they made Bulgari watches that were Genta design, and now
Sure.
they make this. So
Someone mentioned MB&F
lots of business.
and I agree. Yes, MB&F makes insane cases. We've talked about the Bulldog so many times now, which
Yeah.
is still for sale on our website. Like someone needs to buy that. The price is like almost like offensive at this point.
It is.
But
It's insane.
it's crazy.
It's
But
really
yes,
insane.
I agree. MB&F does insane designs. Any of their horological machines.
And that's the coolest part about what he's doing, because he's approaching it from this very pure design.
It's everything
element,
is
you know?
driven by the design. Everything.
Yeah, you look at his Instagram and he's posting like houses and cars
Yeah.
and furniture and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because he's looking at this stuff and he's like, look at the lines.
Yeah.
And,
He's an
and then,
aesthete.
yeah, and it's so cool to
Yeah.
approach watchmaking from that way, because so many brands are like, you know, it's a tourbillon retrograde minute repeater, whatever, and they're focusing on that and then making a case around it. He's looking at it from a design standpoint and saying, how can we completely turn the world on its head?
Right.
Which I love.
Do we want to get like a little uber nerdy real quick and talk about a couple of these, some lug design and a couple of those real quick, and then
Alright.
and then we'll do like a little rapid fire at the end. Your and my favorite pieces on the table or on our wrists or whatever.
Sweet. All right. So hit me. What's a
all
cool
right,
lug
so
design?
well, so I mean, I think
I've
first
talked a lot.
first and foremost, you know, we have a Coda Lim 59 on the table, which, you know, boo hiss, you know, people were not very pleased with this when it was introduced, when it came out, and I think it was really like, it was maligned. People did not give it the respect that it deserves. AP devoted so much time, money, and effort into designing a completely brand new design, you know, case, lug, you know, even right down to the crystal, you know, that double convex crystal.
The
that-
thing,
Go ahead.
I think, until you hold this in your hand, you don't appreciate it.
Agreed. Totally.
The photos never do it justice. I've said it so many times, I'm not going to say it anymore.
and
I promise,
I mean, again, like, yes, you're right. We've said this so many times, but it has that octagonal mid-case, you know, that pays tribute to the Royal Oak, which is cool. But then it has these incredible sculpted lugs, see if you can kind of show that crystal a little bit. Maybe might be able to get it if you
There's the
angle
lugs
it. Yeah,
at least.
the
And
lugs
it's
are
cool because the
beautiful.
lugs come off of the top case and they kiss the bottom case, but there's actually a gap here.
Yes.
Because they don't attach to the bottom case because then you couldn't take it apart and open it up to service it. So the lugs are actually attached to the top, which is really kind of
There you go.
interesting.
Yeah, and they're perfect. You can kind of see that crazy double convex crystal there, which is just wild. Like it's, I don't even honestly know why they did that, but it looks
Because it's cool.
super cool.
Because it's cool
Yeah.
and it messes with your head.
It does.
And again, I would love to own one. I would love to wear one. They've done some really stellar things. This Perpetual being one of
with
them.
the aventurine dial. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, the new Star Wheel version that they did is insane. I can't wait to see that. The Tourbillon's amazing. Even just the newer, just standard ones with just the fume dials are really nice. They're doing like
Yes.
really interesting things with it.
Yeah, the burgundy one remains one of my favorites.
The rose burgundy is super nice. Yeah. All right, so that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a great, and I think what people didn't think about is like you have this brand that's so defined by the Royal Oak, and there was so much pressure for them to offer something that was different. And I think they really nailed it with this. This is a great way for AP to make a dress watch.
Yeah, and basically to evolve, the Jules Audemars line essentially, and offer something more, not be a brand that is just a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 5320 Patek. So I had mentioned.
I feel like we can get a couple in here because this is. I'm gonna just take
Well,
my
so
ring off because I'm gonna hold a couple.
What else are you thinking?
Well, it's Art Deco.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I had mentioned, pieces that were inspired by some Art Deco design earlier in the show, and this, 100%. But where else are you gonna grab?
I was gonna grab this.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was gonna grab
Totally
this.
different, but I was gonna say definitely the 10-day Turb. So I mean,
Three brands, three very different levels of watch, but a theme in terms of Art Deco design.
so if you look, especially you can very easily see it on the 10-day Tourbillon on the far right there. You have those three distinct levels of the case, those stepped levels of the case, which is just like an iconic Art Deco design. Think of like the Chrysler Building essentially.
I was about to say, this is the Chrysler Building on your wrist.
Exactly.
And this watch is criminally undervalued. This is a 10-day Tourbillon from the King Patek.
This is
Philippe.
another one of those, like I was saying about the 222, that I have like the utmost respect for somebody that chooses to wear it. Someone that chooses to wear this Patek 10-day Tourbillon is like, they get all the kudos from me, because this is a piece that you buy because you want to have a tourbillon, but you could care less if anybody else knows that you have a tourbillon because it's only visible on, through the case back. So you're wearing it, you're loving the fact that you have a insane 10-day tourbillon movement from Patek, but on the wrist, it really just looks like kind of a standard gondolo, like not anything all that crazy.
This is the white gold. So
This
we
is
have
white
the blue
gold with the blue
dial
dial,
with the
yeah.
contrasting subs, which
We
to me is
also have the
killer.
platinum with the salmon dial. I think that's
That
actually
one's
that's
up.
available right
This
now.
one is
yeah.
not live yet, but it will be soon. But applied Breguets, a 10-day movement with a tourbillon. That's all. That's all. It's everything.
And then, very similar, that 5320, so this was another one of those kind of recent releases from Patek. I think it was maybe 3-4 years ago at this point now. And it's an interesting fusion of kind of their pilot style designs, with those
Arabics and the
luminous
syringe.
Arabics and the syringe hands, but then you also get those, again, very similar to the Tourbillon, you get those stepped lugs, those Art Deco stepped lugs.
Much more subtle than
much
the
more subtle.
tourbillon and probably a little bit more wearable. I like this cream dial better than the salmon.
I do too, actually.
I would wear this one myself. I think it's super slick.
But yeah, I mean, pretty low-key Perpetual, honestly, from Patek. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's a great piece.
Well, this was their kind of like, hey, for those of y'all who can't afford a 3450
Right.
or a 3449
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
3448, sorry. Here's something with that dial layout, but it's still different. It's a modern case.
Totally
It's a
different.
modern iteration.
Yep.
It's got cool hands.
Arabics, everything.
Great watch, but killer case design. And we're seeing Patek really run with this and do wonderful things.
Grab that Reverso now.
And then here, instead of having those Art Deco elements on the sides, we have them here with that striping.
And this is not just any Reverso, so this is the London, to celebrate the London Boutique. I can't remember how many pieces, Rob, they did of this one. I can look real quick.
26.
26 total pieces of this
Says
watch.
it on the back.
And there are,
There's
you know, countless versions of the Reverso out there over the past, whatever, you know,
Big Ben in
80,
Parliament.
90 years or whatever. But, like, this is a really cool one. That green, it actually, I think it probably does come through in video. It's super bright. It's more of like a Kelly green, and it's pretty in your face.
It's not the same as the current green
No.
Tribute that they're making.
No, not
This
even
is
close.
the 1931 ultra thin.
Yes,
So this
which
is
is the
very
only way to
thin.
go with the Reverso.
These sound lovely.
If they hear that, I
Oh,
hope
you can
heard
hear
it.
that. It's so loud. It's so loud. And I like these because they only say Reverso on the dial. They don't
Yeah.
even say Jaeger, which is super cool. Makes me miss my Reverso. But this, you know, there's a great story about the whole polo players who didn't want to break the glass when they were playing polo and everything. Please don't play polo with your watches on. But, you know, that's why they made it. And so it's got a great story. There's a lot of romance, and you can amaze your friends at parties. There you go. And walk around like this and say, I don't care what time it is.
All right, so somebody actually did ask about the 5205 as well.
We've had
So
a couple folks.
yeah, so
which
not,
is very cool because this, how much is that blue dial Patek Turby? I don't
let me
know. I don't know if
look
we've
real
priced
quick.
it yet.
I don't
but
think
we'll
we
take a
have,
look.
but I can tell you what the platinum one is that's available. We have a platinum one with a salmon dial available for $169.9 right now.
Cheap.
Yeah,
That watch,
that's-
when I first started here, that watch was like $2.25. So you should buy that. So this is the 5205, and
Yep.
this is a cool watch. This is an annual calendar from Patek. I like how this watch layout-wise kind of makes you think of the 5208. Is that right?
52,
Which is like $1 million Patek. Because it's got like this two-tone dial. It's got the 3 windows at the top, moon phase at the bottom.
Talk about those lugs, though, Robert. Talk about
And
those.
yeah,
lugs.
we're talking about cases. There's a couple things on this case that I think are really great. It has these beautiful sculptured elements on the side. It almost feels like the air vents on a Ferrari or something like that, where it like sculpts into the case.
The case has side scoops, like literally has side scoops.
Yeah, and they're so beautifully integrated
They
into
are,
it.
yeah.
Like it's true sculpture, you know. This does not look like some CAD designed kind of thing. This looks like somebody sat there and like figured this out. And they are really beautiful. And it's one of those things where it doesn't hit you over the head. You look at the watch like this and you're like, oh yeah, that's a watch. But then you turn it on the side and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's got a lot.
I love this bezel. I don't know if you can see it, but the bezel actually
concave
concaves
bezel, yeah.
in and then scoops up into the watch, or up towards the crystal. And that's just so cool looking. So the whole thing it looks great. The two-tone is really cool. It'd be a strap monster. You could put this on anything.
There's so many good variants. I mean,
That's a great watch.
pretty much. I don't think there's any single variant that I don't like of the 5205 as well.
No, they're all good.
The white gold blue is probably my favorite.
The rose gold ones are nice. You don't see them
Rose
often.
rose we never see, but they're beautiful
like
as
rose
well.
black
Yep.
is so
Rose
slick.
black is super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great modern Patek. Let me see.
Yeah, anything we should
Yeah,
respond to from the good people
So
of
people are
Instagram?
asking to see some world timers, but unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna have time to get to those today. We definitely will. We'll chat about some world timers soon.
Ooh, somebody on
Oof.
on YouTube, sorry, that's the word. Looking at the 3712.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to get to that right now. We
we
only have a
9
couple minutes.
left.
I
That's
know.
killer.
We will.
Please
though.
contact us. We
Yeah.
can get you videos and photos of that watch. That's a very cool, very rare
And
Patek.
actually, so on both Instagram and YouTube, if you guys have ideas of things that you want us to talk about, let us know ahead of time. Try and get at us earlier in the day on Thursday or even earlier in the week, and we will hit us up in the DMs. Yeah, slide into our DMs, and we'll make a point to try and talk about what you guys want to talk about, because Rob and I talk about this stuff all day, every day, and we get bored. So let us know what you guys want to talk about, and we'll make it happen.
It's tough too because like there are things that we take for granted
Sure.
that we see every day and we know
Like a
about
3712.
that
Yeah.
are like, well, yeah, you know, we know that, and we don't think about the fact that 80 to 90% of the people out there might not even know that watch exists. That
Yeah.
there was something before the 5712,
Right.
and that there's these little differences and all that.
All right. 9 minutes. Let's hit some. Let's you and I, let's talk about our favorite pieces that are on the table, our favorite designs, or if there's anything that we haven't hit.
There's so much here that's really good. So I've always been a fan of these guys, and I think this is probably the coolest watch he ever made.
Yeah. Not the coolest variant of that watch, but that is one of the coolest designs he ever had. David, can we switch to the side view?
This is the Roger Dubuis Sympathy case, and this is an S37, which S for Sympathy, 37 for 37 millimeters. And
although I don't quite know where you measure that 37 millimeters on that case.
No, it does measure. If you go like
I guess top to bottom,
but if you go here, it's the same as here, and it's 37 from the bulge to the bulge.
Oh.
There are versions of this that have the cut crystal like this, where the crystal goes with the case. They are way better than the round crystal versions.
Agreed, yeah.
These early watches, when Dubuis was still actually at the helm of the company, they were making 28 of these at a time, and I've heard that they didn't even make all 28.
I was going to say, and for many of these runs, they were only making far fewer than 28.
Like,
so
this is almost like, I don't even know. This is like this modern art, crazy, wild angles and curves put together to make something really
wish we had. I mean, so that one is also probably the simplest, most straightforward one that he made. There are
the dials get wild.
There are bi-retrogrades. There are perpetuals. There are all kinds of chrono.
That chrono you bought long ago.
White gold black dial. Oh my gosh, I got in trouble because I paid too much for it, but it was so good.
Which was like $7 grand.
Yeah, I know. This was like 7 years ago or whatever.
And I think we sold it for what, 14 or something?
No, it wasn't that much. No.
It wasn't even that much.
No.
Yeah,
but yeah, incredible. So Roger Dubuis
long
agreed.
before now.
It's one of those ones that people keep on talking about. It's like the next big thing in vintage, neo-vintage kind of circles, but then it never really pops. So
they're really good.
They're amazing. I am going to go. Well, here, Cartier, please show this bad boy off.
Justin and Cartier.
This piece is insane.
Brave new world over here.
This is a tank. This doesn't look all that special, but this is a tank Cintree. But if you'll notice, it doesn't look like the platinum, the rose gold, or the yellow gold version that Cartier has made over the past few years.
This must be platinum, right?
This is platinum. So
because ruby.
Right. So this is a incredibly limited edition piece that was made specifically for Paris Watch Club. They made 6 pieces in this configuration, and it is a platinum case. It's kind of hard to see in video, but the dial is actually a super, super deep sunburst blue, and you can kind of see it. It's absolutely insane in person when you get it in sunlight.
Midnight blue.
It's exactly midnight blue. It's beautiful. So
exploding
gorgeous midnight blue dial. You
Arabics.
have those white exploding Arabics, and then the red ruby cabochon. And being the Paris Watch Club, the gentleman who is the head of the club specifically worked with Cartier using those colors because they're the colors of the French flag. So you have the red, white, and the blue.
This Cintree case is a work of art.
It's incredible.
And this to me is so amazing.
Compare this to.
Because it is so simple looking, but when you wear this and you actually look at this must have taken a long time to get right.
Well, but the thing is,
it looks simple, but it's not.
They basically recreated the original tank Cintree from the 20s.
But that's what I mean. It's like when they were designing that watch, it looks so simple. They were like, oh, make it rectangle and add a little curve, and there you go.
Right.
But this is at such a high level that
curved
this
case,
must
curved
have
crystal, and then my other favorite is the one that's on my wrist today. So this is one of my all-time favorites. I'm like super lucky to have this tank Baignoire, rose gold. It's so elegant.
Do they really call this tank Baignoire?
I think technically it's the tank Baignoire.
That's so funny.
Baignoire for bathtub, French for bathtub. So it's crazy. The case itself is curved. It has a curved glass crystal, with complex curves. A fully guilloche dial. It's on like a shoestring of a strap.
No, but it works though. Even like I'm 7 1/4 on my wrist there. I'd wear this, no problem.
Right.
Are you kidding?
It is such a cool
This is not
piece.
as bad as the Tonneaus. Those have really small straps.
They do.
This, to me, I'd wear this. It's a good thing you bought this before I got my hands on it.
I love this watch.
Man, that's slick.
I absolutely love it.
Hidden lugs. And this is manual, right?
It's manual wind, yeah, of course.
I mean, we could do a whole show on Cartier. We have
We
one
will.
more Cartier
We will.
here. You've seen it before. It's a cloche, the bell. These are super cool, although you'll have to learn how to tell time all over again, which, I don't know. I think it's worth it. I wore a regulator for a long time and had no problem.
I wear my cloche and I could care less what time it is. I just
that too,
look at the
right?
watch.
Who
like
cares?
it's so cool.
So,
right, quickly,
to
a
talk
couple
about
more.
indies, Bethune, what they have done is very cool because they've created this whole kind of case that nobody else makes, where you have the watch and then you have these like articulated lugs off the side here.
Spring loaded, yeah.
I know they even offer, like, there's the long lugs and the short lugs so that you can make sure it fits your wrist. So they make these watches that are really big, but that's comfortable. Super comfortable, super slim. It would fit under a cuff, no problem. It would still be super cool. Another watch that sticks in my craw. Sorry, then I'll let you talk.
No, go for it.
DB25.
Sticks in your craw, huh?
TB25, rose gold with the standard silver dial and a little power reserve at the top. It was simple. It was beautiful. At the time, I think it was 25 grand, and I was like, man, I really like this, but that's a lot of money. Now you can't touch them for less than 50.
If I'm going to Bethune, I'm going. I mean, I actually really do like this one, the blacked out matte finish on that guy. I'm going Stradivarius though. DB28
Yes,
Stradivarius,
that is the best one.
just incredible piece. Also continuing with the, I still consider Journe to be an indie. The Elegante. I mean, Journe is kind of the king of funk, you know, and this is just such a cool watch.
Definitely the best quartz watch you can buy.
I was going to say, this is the only quartz, well, by far the best quartz watch you can buy. The only one that I would consider owning. I love the fact that the dial is basically like a 1990s Timex Indiglow. You know, that entire dial glows when you hit it with some UV.
Do we have a flashlight in here?
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Leave it to Journe to create a super advanced quartz movement.
10 years of battery life.
10 years of battery life, and it achieves that by when you take the watch off, the battery goes to sleep, and the watch stops keeping time essentially. And then when you pick it up, if you'll notice down at 5 o'clock, you've got that little regulator down there, and when you move it, that weighted, there you go, you can kind of see it jiggling there. The weight there moves and it wakes the movement back up, and the hands all of a sudden move from wherever they had stopped to the correct time. It's super cool to watch
It's
when you
super
pick it up.
lightweight. It's very comfortable. He makes a lot of cool colors. for the
Titanium,
strap.
yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome
Good one.
piece.
Okay.
One more.
One
Here.
more.
I love this watch.
We're gonna have to do two more.
We're gonna.
You just went 2 in a row, but that's okay. Because
All right, Ferrier, Laurent Ferrier Sport Auto. This is the newer. They had made several limited edition pieces with the Sport.
but the
with the
Tourbillon,
Tourbillon, sorry.
which
This
were
is
big money.
huge dough.
And very small
huge,
numbers.
Huge dough. In a much larger case. This is, I don't remember off the top of my head what the size of this case is, but it is much more manageable. It
Feels like a 40 on my wrist.
Even on my 6.5 inch
41.
wrist, it sits super nicely. The bracelet is very comfortable. It's titanium, so it's super light. It's got really interesting dial, which we're not talking about, but the dial is super interesting. The movement is beautiful, as are all Ferrier movements. So I love a good Ferrier.
Okay, let's end with something good.
Don't you dare go Panerai.
So before I did this, I was in music, and I was an artist of sorts. And art to me is nothing if it does not move you. And that could be move you in a good way, or it could repulse you and move you in a negative way. And I find that Panerai is a brand that polarizes people, and they either love it or they hate it. And I love that about it. So you get the crown guard on the side, which is very Panerai. This is the Luminor case. And this is the radio mirror case where you get like the diamond style pilot crown and the wire lugs. This is my watch. I adore it. And I love both of these styles. I will one day add a Luminor as well, because I think they're killer.
You're gonna double down on Panerai?
They were built for a purpose. They are instantly recognizable.
They are.
And actually, the similarities between this and that first Oyster case are pretty darn
They
close.
actually are, yeah. You're right,
Because there's a partnership there, and the first one's had Rolex movements in it, but that's a whole another discourse to be had. So I mean, you can't talk about cases without Panerai, in my opinion. So a lot of stuff we didn't get to on this table. A lot of great stuff. That is a beautiful Cintree. I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We get a lot. Yeah.
That's
well,
a lot. There's so much to talk
Man.
about. There's so many cool watches on this table.
We got to do a better job of trying to stay on track and actually we didn't. I mean, we didn't.
It's my
We
fault.
we showed the Corne de Vache
Corne de
real
Vache.
quick.
We
the
didn't
historic.
talk about Lang & Hain.
We didn't talk about Lang & Hain.
Urwerk, Monaco,
Jeez.
Tortue, Big Pilot,
Yeah.
which is kind of in that Panerai family.
Yep.
The Odysseus, which is, longer
So,
going the other way.
Offshore.
The offshore and the whole transition there with, I can't remember the gentleman's name who designed it, but the
Guites.
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. Yeah, Emmanuel Guites. Yeah, so his interpretation of Genta's original design.
yeah,
Regardless,
which also people lost their minds.
we
over
didn't hit everything. We're gonna have to do this again. Again, you guys, if there's anything you guys want to talk about or see, let us know ahead of time so that we can make sure we show stuff. Any interest in a Cartier Tank Jumbo? 57?
Email us.
Yeah.
We're
let us
always
know.
interested. Please email us.
Thank you so much for tuning in again. We will see you next week. I don't know what we're gonna talk about, but
We'll
be
figure
back.
it out.
So,
Bye, everybody.
see you guys.